For the following interview, Danny Berger, Bloomberg TV anchor, takes the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining for this conversation, American Business Forum for having us, and most importantly, Serena, thank you for sitting down in this spaceship for this conversation.
Yes, this is great.
So here we are at the American Business Forum, and Serena, from a very young age, you from literally being at the negotiating table with Puma as a teenager, to taking investor calls on your way to center stage at Wimbledon, Serena, the businesswoman, and Serena, the athlete, have always been linked. When did you yourself think of you as a businesswoman?
When did I think of me as a businesswoman? That is a really good question because I feel like I've always thought of me as a businesswoman. I think when it came to sport and when it came to things that I did in sport in particular, listen, my job was a business. You know, it wasn't for me just about going out there and hitting tennis balls and winning. Obviously, that was the biggest part of it, but it was also really about being a business, being an entrepreneur. And at the time, when I was doing all this, there was lots of things and lots of people saying that you have to focus only on tennis, that you can't do other things, you can't have this other stuff, you can't be an entrepreneur, you can't think about other businesses, you really just have to do tennis. And I pushed that envelope and I said, you know what, that's not me. I am a kind of person, I was taught from an early age, actually from my father, that it was really important to have a plan B. I don't know if he thought that I would do decent in tennis or not. Maybe that's why he told me I needed a plan B. But that's something that kind of always stuck with me. And so when it came to what I wanted to do in sport, whether it was fashion or whether it was design or whether it was investing, it was something that was always going to be this entrepreneur. And now the new modern athlete, if you think about it, the modern athlete, if they're only playing their sport, then now that's frowned upon.
True.
So I love seeing the difference of how it started versus how, you know, people look at sport as an athlete now.
I mean, what a plan B. A lot of people spend all their lives even having that as their plan A. But when you decided to make it your plan A, when you announced in 2022 that you'd be stepping off the court, did you have any hesitation or any concerns about leaving tennis behind?
Absolutely. You know, my whole life has been tennis up until when I retired. And I always thought, I actually never knew when it was going to happen. I always wanted to retire, but I actually never did it because it just wasn't realistic. Like, imagine growing up from as long as you can remember having a tennis racket in your hand and then one day it's just done. And it's you know, the thing is you expect it from the moment you have that tennis racket in your hand, but you never really expect it until it's over. It's just this weird feeling. At any rate, I always knew that day would come. I just didn't really know when or how, but when I did decide that it was time to move on, I had already started other businesses. I had already been investing when I I don't like the word retired, but when I evolved from tennis, I had already been investing for, I don't know, like 8 years at the time. I'd already had my firm. I'd already built a great team of people that were way smarter than me around the table. And it wasn't something that I would just have a hard fall from. I felt like I wanted to have a softer landing, which I don't know if I did or if I didn't. I wanted to have a softer landing, but I also didn't want to start something new when I just finished something. And that's something, again, my dad always told me, like, you can't go into something brand new when you finish. You need to already have it started. You need to already have a plan. You know, if you don't have that plan, then it's going to be difficult to start something new. And so I was really grateful for that, because if I were to have started investing now, after I retired, I mean, oh my gosh, the learning curve and doing everything, it would have taken years and years, and a lot of that experience was already done while I was playing. So,
well, you know, it's such a good point that it is the model now that as an athlete, you're almost expected to be so much more than that. But even so, there have been a lot of public figures who've decided to go into investing, especially because you were early on in doing that. Did you face any sort of stereotypes of people rolling their eyes saying, what is an athlete doing in business?
I did not too many, but there are obviously a lot of people rolling their eyes and saying, like, what are you doing in investing? But again, that now was over 15 years ago. So I definitely was earlier on, not, I was much earlier on the curve when it came to investing. And it was something that was really innate that I just kind of flowed to, and that was something that really just attracted me. And it was actually early stage investing that really attracted me for whatever reason at the time. Of course, I didn't know it was called early stage. I didn't know what anything was. I didn't know what a seed was. I didn't know any of that stuff. It was this really great learning experience. I loved what Jamie Dimon said earlier, how life is really just about learning. You're learning every single day, and that's kind of a theory that I love. And that's one thing I love about VC. Every time I step into the office, I feel like I'm in college and I'm learning something new about some other product and what it does and what it doesn't do, and how we don't have it yet. And so, but yeah, so for me, I always just was attracted to that. And, actually in the beginning, I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, just sitting in different offices and just learning and just asking people, do you mind if I sit? Thankfully, they were okay to have Serena Williams sit in their office, and they weren't too embarrassed to have me there. But it was very nice to be able to sit and just learn from CEOs and learn from different people as I was investing, and just to understand what I was getting into.
Come on, they must have asked you for advice too.
They did, and a couple companies did ask me for advice, and I actually gave them some really good advice, and they actually included it in their programming. And so one very popular company, which I won't say, I sat in their office a lot. The CEO is amazing. And I was like, dude, you really need to change your algorithm. This isn't quite working. You need to do this and do that. And to this day, they use it. And I'm like, gosh, I should have got something for that. But I'm like, you know what? I can silently take credit for that. And I'm okay with that.
I love that. And look, when you started Serena Ventures, your vision was very clear. You've said this many times, and I think it actually might have come out of something else Jamie Dimon said about the 2% that's left out of VC financing, that you wanted to create a fund that invested in the 98%. We're in a time in America, it's been called the K-shaped economy, where those missing out are missing out more than they ever had before.
Yeah.
Does that make the mission all the more critical at this time?
Yeah, listen, a lot of VC really invests in that 2 to 4%, right? And that is such a huge market. It's $1 trillion market. And so is the 98 to 96%. That's actually a massive, massive, massive market, arguably bigger. And so for us, what we want to do, we want to bring technology to that market. We want to bring lots of new things that is being invested to, and people that are forgotten. And also, it means a lot to me because I was a part of that percent growing up. And I think, as you said, that curve is getting wider and wider, and it's spreading more and more, or that space, I should say, is spreading more and more. And I feel not necessarily responsibility, but I just feel attracted to that. And I really love investing in things that are doing good, but also making a lot of money, quite frankly. And we have lots of companies in our portfolio that's doing just that.
I was going to say, last year you gave a statistic. I think you had said you invested in over 85 companies and 14 of them were unicorns. Mm-hmm. That is an insanely high hit rate. That definitely deserves an applause. That is a hit rate near 16%, and I think something the entirety of Silicon Valley would be very jealous of.
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce?
There is no secret sauce. I think it's really just really understanding what you like and what you do, and really going with your gut on things that make sense. And obviously, through experience, I've learned that when I meet the founders, there's different questions that I ask to see if they're really into the business, if they're not, and how does that work. And so really doing due diligence, really getting to know what founders are talking about, really getting to understand their thought processes. As an investor, you're only as good as your founder, and you want them to be the best that they can be. And so for me, and what I do is I try to talk to our founders and try to figure out, how can I help you? How can we get this product to be the best if we believe in it? Is there a marketplace for it? All the basic questions, but really diving deeper into that and why. And so that's just kind of what we do at Serena Ventures, is just kind of learn how we can fill in different gaps in different areas that are being missed. And by the way, these gaps tend to be really, really massive. And that's what we do. And then when you kind of have a focus and you focus on that, it just sometimes works.
In terms of talking to these founders, you also said recently that your name isn't enough, that they are being more choosy. What do you think it is about this moment that founders are being more choosy with who they decide to work with?
I think we live in an era where technology is just obviously taking over. And then if you have something really unique and that's really going to set off and it's going to be really amazing, then obviously the founder is in a position where they can choose who their investors are. So what we want to do is we want to be able to add to the table. We want to be able to bring so much to them that they can expand we can help them with their network. We can get them in different areas and open different doors for them. And so you really have to be able to not only just rely on your name, but really just rely on your team and on your expertise and on your experience. And that's what we did. We really brought in a lot of experience to the firm to be able to really take our founders to that next level, because that's what it's all about, is how are we able to take the founders to the next level. And also me, years and years of doing what I did in the past, building up tons of relationships and being able to open so many different doors for so many different founders, has been invaluable, really. And so that's kind of what it really is all about for us. It's really just having this opportunity to let founders know we are more than a name. We are really an institution. We are an institution. We're building something that's going to last for a very long time. We're investing in companies that we want to last for a very long time and that are actually changing how people are living their everyday lives and changing them for the better and upgrading them through, whether it's through software or whether it's through hardware. We want to be able to elevate that. And so those are the things that we think about. And founders are at a position where, and in particular now with AI and everything, they're in a position to bring who they want to the table if their product is good.
Well, it's a moment where VC is obsessed with AI. I think that's fair to say. The latest data from PitchBook says that nearly $200 billion have gone into specifically AI-related startups this year. By far a record, and will be the first year on record where more than half of VC money goes to AI-related startups. Again, keeping in mind the investing for the 98%, are you concerned about that concentration of capital?
Not at all. Everything that we invest in, if they don't have a future in AI, if they're not thinking about AI, we're second guessing our investment in them. And we are trying to say, well, if you're not going to do this, this can be problematic, because if your business can be taken over by AI, that's going to be a problem. I heard on stage earlier, AI isn't a problem. People that aren't using AI is going to be a problem. And so I think there's some real truth to that, because you have to be able to incorporate it in your life in one way or the other. If you have a fintech company and then you can go on an AI program and they can do the same thing, then why would someone put money into your fintech company? So for us, it's very important. If we're really going to be able to impact that large percentage of people, 98, 96%, you're not going to be able to impact them in the future without AI. And so for us, it's very important that we too obviously are, who's not bullish on AI? Sure. We obviously are bullish on AI, and so we absolutely invest in that. And then when we talk to our founders, we want to know what they are doing just to make sure that they're not going to be run over with AI and our investment dollars aren't going down the toilet.
So have you turned away a lot of companies because they don't have that clear AI game plan?
No, because every company has AI, so they say. But when you dive deeper, you realize that they might not have AI.
Right.
And then we turn them away. But not every company, because not everything is, AI. Right. But I think of it this way. I think of it, 20 years ago with the web. When it came out, it was so new and so fresh and like, wow, we're going to be living on the internet. And there's this really cool interview, I think, with David Letterman and, oh my God, I can't believe oh my gosh. Anyway.
Someone in the AI space,
No,
Okay.
Anyway, okay. So he's telling everyone that the internet is this cool thing, and David is like, well, I can just listen to the radio for that. Like, why would I need to stream something on? And he's saying in the future you'll be able to stream sports on the internet. And David is like, well, that's what I have the radio on, and everyone in the crowd claps and they're laughing, and I'm like, wow, this is dated. Because can you imagine saying that now? And it's quite interesting, because now we're doing this again in AI, but think of it as like 100 times bigger. Right. And so of course you want your companies to have that integration, and of course you want to have that. And so that's kind of how we look at it.
It is, though, again, sort of in the idea of the K-shaped economy with the bridge getting wider. You are someone who's always been fascinated with technology. I think that's also fair to say.
Always, since the sidekick.
So you've been there since day one with the little, I miss the sidekick.
Well,
the
since
keyboard.
before the sidekick.
Bring back keyboards on our phones, I think. How are you thinking about like AI as a whole and how it might disrupt just society? Do you have any concerns there, especially as you're working, again, with everyday people and entrepreneurs and figuring out how to integrate AI? Is there a concern we lose?
I think there is obviously a concern, but I think what we try to do at what I'm doing now is just bring people into it and let them know that it's one thing. Some platforms in AI, they're so easy, and it's very user-friendly. And so I think that's a little bit of a difference as well. AI is very user-friendly, and so a lot of people can adapt to it, and so a lot of people are adapting to it. So I feel like it's just, the integration doesn't have to be as difficult as a lot of people think. Of course, there's going to be a lot of jobs left behind on the table. Of course, there's going to be a lot of things, but there's also going to be other things that open up. And so I think eventually we'll see that. I am not a person that predicts the future. I don't know, and I'm not an expert on that. But what I can say is that there is going to be obviously there has already been a huge shift and a huge change, and it's going to continue to be that, but there will be other opportunities that open up as well.
So, Serena, you're involved in many ventures, from VC, as we've been discussing, to partnering with brands, to own personal investments in things like sports. What is a week like in Serena Inc.?
Oh my God, it's insane. I don't know how I survive. I had a coffee earlier because usually I don't have this much energy, and this is a lot of energy for me. So imagine low. So a week, I have calls, team calls, SV calls, Serena Venture calls, I should say. And I also have 2 kids, and I am like the ultimate hands-on mom. I take them to school, I pick them up, I cook every night, except for the weekends. I kind of check out on the weekends. But I check back in on Monday morning. I love cooking, so that's like my thing. And I still travel. I still work with different brands like Nike and other companies. Yeah, so it is. This week I was actually in Atlanta for a couple days, and I'm here, and in between I was at home, and I'm going to LA in a couple of days, and this is a crazy week. So it's kind of nonstop. And so I also meal prep for my kids, so I like cook things that they can eat while I'm out of town.
By the way, speaking of that, I heard you once say that Olympia's interning at her dad's company.
No,
I
my
swear.
daughter is interning at my company.
Oh, she's interning.
Yes,
Excuse me,
yes.
that is my fault.
He
She's
did
interning.
claim summer internship.
I
I'm like,
see.
okay, but I get the rest of the year. She needs to see amazing women doing amazing things, and not that he isn't. His things are way more amazing than mine. I mean, my husband's a genius, but she can get the genius in the summer, and she can get me the rest of the year. So it's really nice. It's cool because I always have, like, my niece and nephew interned for me when I was a tennis player, and so now Olympia's going to do it, but on the business side. So it's going to be fun to see.
I love that. So you're definitely encouraging her to go the business route of things.
No, I want her to be a tennis player, obviously. That's way more fun. But she can do business if she wants to.
I love that. So one thing that, again, you've done as from a very young age is working with different brands and understanding what sort of fits your portfolio, who you want to endorse and who you don't. In an age of social media, there's just so much more demand for those types of deals. How do you think about it? How do you evaluate different brand deals, different endorsements, and making sure you don't dilute your own personal brand?
I think for me, when it comes to aligning with different brands, I really have to align with something that speaks to me, and something that I use, or something that I can benefit from, or something that is very authentic to me. And I think, as you said, now, in the era of social media, new generation, they really can see through the BS, right? And so it's really important. And I think brands has also understood this and caught on that if it's not authentic, it's not going to work. And so a lot of things are doing better now because they're using either micro-influencers or they're using influencers and not necessarily celebrities, because it's very authentic to them, and they're actually using the product and they show how the product works, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, when I align with a brand, I usually like to have a very long-term relationship. Sometimes I even know people before we actually work together. Um, but it has to be very authentic. It has to be something that I truly believe in from my soul and that I can really go out there and talk about. I don't want to go out there and talk about something that's fake and that's not real because I just can't do that. And so for me, it's very important to be able to talk about something that's real, that I've had a real hands-on experience with, and that I can really, understand.
I say that feels like a through line to your investments as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When it comes to investing as well, I like to really make sure, maybe I don't use it, but I want to make sure that I understand it. And if I were younger or if I were older, like we do a ton of stuff in health and women's health as well. And I think that's such a big, important part of this conversation. That's half of our population.
Yeah.
That's a huge,
Yeah,
target.
if I'm not mistaken, one of your portfolio companies was the first to get FDA approval for at-home pap smears.
Yes.
Which is huge.
It's huge. And so women's health, historically, it's huge. It's this company called Till. They got FDA approved, and it was a very long process. We invested in them a long time ago. Very long process. They finally got approved to have an at-home pap smear, which is something really that should have existed for women a long time ago. And the fact that it took that long to get approval, that's another story. But women's health is something that's been totally forgotten. But the difference is now is with technology and this new generation that's aging and that's getting older, they're comfortable talking about things that weren't really so open in the past. And so now that they're comfortable talking about it, they're comfortable investing in it, they're comfortable getting more information behind it, and they want to feel better. We want to feel better, right? And so it's such an incredibly interesting sector to invest in because it's such a big market, and it also helps so many people. And that's what I said. That's the intersection between helping people and being successful at it. And there's so many intersections like that. It's not just women's health. It's just so many different areas. But that's another one of our passions is just to invest in things like that that are helping, changing, and also fruitful.
Yeah. Well, one of the other sectors that you've invested in is sports, something you've also done for a while, from the Miami Dolphins here in Miami to more recently the new Toronto Tempo WNBA franchise. What's the investment thesis driving those?
Well, gosh, I did the Dolphins, honestly, I want to say 18 years ago. So I've really been investing for a very long time, way before it was popular for athletes to invest. Gosh, obviously, I think that's an obvious next step for us. I mean, we do a lot of boring, non-sexy software, things. But now we are definitely doing more in sport. I do a little stuff on the personal side for sport as well. But I don't know. I feel like it's quite interesting to do a little bit more in sport.
Are you looking at more in sport then, it sounds like?
Well, yeah, I've always been obviously interested in sport, I would say. Sport's pretty cool.
A very fair
A
assumption
lot of
to
people
make.
are investing in women's sport, and I feel like obviously that's where my heart and soul is for obvious reasons. And it's interesting because people are just noticed women's sport. And I'm
Right.
like, well, women's sport has been around for decades and decades and decades, and we were always amazing, and you guys just noticed. But it's good that we're getting noticed now, and I love the support that it's getting. And so the best way to show that support is to invest.
Well, again, a lot of your investing philosophy comes from sport. And one thing I remember you've said is that success is about how you handle the losses.
Mm-hmm.
That's abundantly clear in just the absolute upper echelons that you perform as an athlete. When it comes to businesses, what's been a tough business loss, and what has it taught you? Have you applied the same lesson in what you're doing now?
I mean, there's some investments that I missed that are huge right now. And that was a loss. How do I take that? It's just, you just have to learn, like, why did you pass on it or why did you miss it? And also in the future, like if you do pass on something or you do miss something or you just don't see it and it just, for whatever reason, at that moment it doesn't connect with you or anyone on your team, then we literally will take our calls and we go back and I want to know who did the pass, why did we do the pass, who was on the call, and we really dive into it. I think that's the athlete in me, is just going back to understanding. It's like you study film. And I kind of bring that to the firm as like, okay, I need to know every single reason why it didn't work, why we passed, what was the method behind it, who wrote the pass, who called. And also, so what we do now is if we do pass, because we're such early stage investors, so we do now have an opportunity to invest in follow-ons. So what we do now is like, okay, what can we do better? If we pass on something, let's stay in contact with these founders. If we maybe just stay in contact with them, we check in on them. That way, if they're doing successful and they do raise another round of funding, we still have that opportunity to invest in the next round at a higher valuation, but we still have that opportunity to invest. And so that's kind of how we handled those losses in the past. And so now, even if we do miss something, which is inevitable in VC, in particular now that everyone is doing AI, so now what we do is we just say, okay, we try to stay in contact with our founders and we pass on. We're very kind. We give them different reasons, but we always let them know we would love to stay in contact and continue to learn and how you're growing. And we've actually passed recently on a couple of investments, but we stayed in contact with them, and then we came in on a later round and happened to be discounted because they really wanted the firm in there. And all because we incorporated that loss, it made us better. Sometimes losing is important because we learn very valuable lessons. And now, if we hadn't lost, we wouldn't be in all these other amazing companies that we got into.
Serena, I'd love to end kind of where we began, this idea that it wasn't a retirement, it was an evolution.
Yes.
What's next in the evolution of Serena Williams?
What's next in the evolution of Serena? Time off, just definitely taking a breather. I never took too much time off, maybe a vacation. I don't know. I've really tried to build a really great team so I can take a lot of time off. Maybe one more hire, and then I could take an even bigger step back. And so that's what's next.
I love that.
Yes.
And that is a perfect note to end it on, so we can give Serena some time off. Everyone, please join me in thanking Serena Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
When a pioneering investment inspires you to dig deeper and step up to the highest level, that's the PIF effect.
At the Adam Smith Center for Economic